The People's Pharmacy podcast is supported in part by CocoVia. CocoVia cocoflavanols support both cardiovascular health and cognitive function by promoting healthy blood flow. That transports oxygen and nutrients to vital organs and muscles, including your heart and brain.
CocoVia now comes in an even more concentrated formula with 450 milligrams of cocoflavanols, 5 times more than the leading dark chocolate bar and 15 times more than the leading cocoa powder.
CocoVia has a proprietary process that preserves cocoflavanols at the highest levels. The product undergoes rigorous testing at every stage to guarantee the highest level of cocoflavanols per serving and to provide the purest, highest quality product possible.
People's Pharmacy listeners can now try CocoVia for 25% off by using the code PEOPLES25 at cocovia.com. Is your brain getting mushy from too much cable news or on-demand video? This is your chance to improve your learning power. This is the People's Pharmacy with Terry and Joe Graydon.
Digital devices have become an integral part of our lives. But even though they can be useful tools, they can also be supervillains. How do you cope with digital deluge and digital distraction?
Do you have unsuspected superpowers to overcome these supervillains? How can you learn to focus better, think more critically, and remember important things more effectively?
What are the top 10 foods to nourish your brain?
Coming up on the People's Pharmacy, upgrade your brain and learn almost anything faster.
In the People's Pharmacy Health Headlines, new research suggests that face masks work well to reduce the spread of COVID-19 if everybody wears one. Public health officials were slow to recommend face coverings for everyone. Now, however, the CDC and the World Health Organization encourage people to wear face masks whenever they are out in public. A research letter published in JAMA tracked the rate of positive tests for SARS-CoV-2 among healthcare workers in MGB, a big hospital system in Boston. The trend was rising steeply starting at the beginning of March. Then the hospital system required all healthcare workers to wear surgical masks at work starting March 25th. It wasn't until patients were also required to wear surgical masks starting April 6th that the rate of positive coronavirus tests clearly began dropping. The researchers conclude universal masking at MGB was associated with a significantly lower rate of SARS-CoV-2 positivity among healthcare workers. These results support universal masking as part of a multi-pronged infection reduction strategy in healthcare settings. Outside of healthcare settings, organizations ranging from Walmart to the French Republic now require face masks for everyone. Experts hope that this will help slow the progress of the pandemic.
In addition to wearing face masks, people are encouraged to wash their hands or use hand sanitizer. Alcohol-based products containing ethanol are quite effective in killing bacteria and viruses when used for at least 30 seconds. Sadly, though, some manufacturers have been adding methanol or wood alcohol to their hand sanitizers. Methanol can be absorbed through the skin and can be quite toxic. The FDA is warning consumers to avoid such products and has provided a list of more than 50 on its website. When children ingest tainted hand sanitizers, the consequences can be blindness, hospitalization, or death.
Many young adults have heard the message that COVID-19 is dangerous for older people. Some have interpreted that to mean they don't have to worry about infection. However, new data indicate that about a third of people between 18 and 25 are vulnerable to serious complications from the coronavirus. People who smoke or vape are especially susceptible to severe infection. A survey of 8,400 young people found that more than a fifth of them are smokers. People may need more than 6 weeks to recover from a severe case of COVID-19, which can also cause long-term damage to many organs.
How does diet affect your chance of developing type 2 diabetes? Data from a large European epidemiological study indicate that people who eat more fruits and vegetables are at lower risk for this metabolic disorder. The scientists analyzed blood levels of vitamin C and carotenoids for more than 22,000 people. Over the 10 years of follow-up, those who had the highest blood levels of these nutrients were only half as likely to develop diabetes as those with the lowest blood levels. People with robust blood levels of vitamin C and carotenoids reported eating about a pound of fruits and vegetables daily, almost twice as much as those with the lowest levels.
What about protein? How important is the kind of protein we consume when it comes to overall health? A study published in JAMA Internal Medicine tracked more than 400,000 men and women for 16 years. The more plant protein they consumed, the longer they lived. In addition to reduced overall mortality, plant protein consumption was associated with fewer deaths from cardiovascular disease and stroke during the study. The scientists calculate that substituting plant protein for 3% of energy from eggs or red meat could reduce overall mortality by about 10%.
What about fish? A study published in the journal Neurology has found that older women who eat 1 or 2 servings of fish or shellfish a week appear to protect their brains from the damaging effects of air pollution. Women who had the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acids in their blood had significantly less brain shrinkage than their peers who ate less fish. And that's the health news from the People's Pharmacy this week. Welcome to the People's Pharmacy. I'm Joe Graydon.
And I'm Terry Graydon. Last week, we spoke with Dr. Cynthia Green about maintaining our memory during the isolation and digital overload of this COVID-19 pandemic. This week, we're following up with the second in our series on keeping your brain sharp and your memory strong. Our guest will help you identify the supervillains that can negatively impact your brain: digital distraction, digital deluge, and digital dementia. If you're feeling deluged and distracted, you have plenty of company. What superpowers can you call on to conquer these supervillains?
Our guest today is Jim Kwik. He's an expert in speed reading, memory improvement, and optimal brain performance. He's the CEO and founder of Kwik Learning, a leader in accelerated learning. For over 2 decades, he served as a brain coach to students, seniors, entrepreneurs, and educators, as well as professional athletes, political leaders, and corporate clients. Jim Kwik is the author of Limitless: Upgrade Your Brain, Learn Anything Faster, and Unlock Your Exceptional Life.
Welcome to the People's Pharmacy, Jim Kwik.
So wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Jim, could you please tell us about your childhood brain injury and why kids, and they can be cruel, called you the boy with the broken brain?
So people are often surprised to hear about that because if they've seen videos or me on stage, I do these demonstrations where I'll memorize 100 people's names or 100 words from an audience or 100 random numbers forwards and backwards. But I tell people I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's truly possible, because I know it's possible because I grew up with learning difficulties. When I was 5 years old, I had an accident in kindergarten class, a traumatic brain injury. And I had, my parents said after I left the hospital, I was never the same. Before I was very playful and curious and energized, I became very shut down. And so where it really showed up was in school. I had poor focus, a poor memory. Teachers would repeat themselves over and over again. I would pretend to understand, but I didn't really understand. And it took me an extra 3 years just to learn how to read. My teacher, when I was 9 years old, came to my defense, actually. I think the intention was positive, but I was being teased and bullied in class because I was slowing down the class because I didn't really understand the lessons like everybody else did. And she came to my defense but said that that's the boy with the broken brain in front of the whole class. And adults have to be very careful with their external words because they became my internal words. And every time I did badly on a test, which was all the time, every time wasn't picked for sports, which was often, I would always say, oh, it's because I have the broken brain. And that became my label. And that label created my limit.
So, Jim, how did you overcome that limit?
So I struggled all through school, middle school, junior high, high school. My superpower growing up, and I talk about superpowers because I learned how to read by reading comic books late at night when my parents thought I was sleeping. And something about the stories and illustrations gave me hope and provided real inspiration for me. But my superpower growing up was becoming invisible. I would always shrink down. I would sit behind the tall kid in class because when you feel like you're broken, you don't really want the spotlight. You don't have the answers. And when I turned 18, I was lucky to get into a local university. And I thought freshman meant I could make a fresh start. And I took all these classes and hoping to do better, to show the world, show myself, make my parents proud. And I actually did worse. And it put me down in a very bad spiral where I just had to work so hard. I was living in the library, and one night I just passed out of sheer exhaustion. I fell down a flight of stairs. I hit my head again, and I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. And at this point, because I wasn't eating, I was wasting away. I was down to 117 pounds, and I thought I died. And it was just a really dark time. And I just woke up and I thought there had to be a better way. And I said, what's my real problem? My real problem is I'm a very slow learner. Well, how do I think differently about it? Well, maybe I could learn how to learn. So I set my studies aside and I wanted to solve this riddle. How does my brain work so I could work my brain? How does my memory work so I could work my memory better? And I started studying adult learning theory, multiple intelligence theory. I started studying ancient mnemonics. I wanted to find out, what did ancient cultures do before there were printing presses and computers to remember things? I started studying brain science, speed reading, all these different modalities. And about 60 days into it, a light switch flipped on. And I started to really understand things for the first time. I started to have better focus. I started to be able to retain information, apply it. And my grades shot up, but along with it, my life unfolded. And because of it, I became passionate about helping other people to be able to, who are struggling with distraction or forgetfulness or overload. And one of my very first students I was tutoring, she was a freshman in college. She read 30 books in 30 days. And I was so amazed. Can you imagine reading 30 books, not skimming or scanning, but really retaining it?
No, I can't.
So, because so many people buy books and they sit on our shelf and they become shelf help and not real self-help, because buying a book is a different skill set than actually reading it. But going back to this young woman, I wanted to find out her motivation for reading all those books. And I found out, because I know how she did it, because I taught her, I found out her motivation, her drive was her mother was dying of terminal cancer. Doctors gave her mother 2 months to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mother's life. And I ended up finding out that she did. And when I found that out, I realized in that moment that if knowledge is power, learning is our superpower. And it's a superpower we all have inside of us. And I've dedicated my life to showing people how to access it.
Jim, what you're describing, at least with this particular case, is accelerated learning. And you are a leader in this field. Can you give us some sense of what that means and how you help people?
Absolutely. I believe that when I use the term limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless is about progressing and advancing beyond what we believe is possible. And the limitless resource we have on planet Earth really is the human mind. There is no limit to our creativity. There's no limit to our imagination. There's no limit to our ability to solve problems, to be able to come together, our ability to our human determination. And really, I wanted to be able to provide people tools and techniques and strategies on how to upgrade the most important technology, which is the one we're born with, which is our brain. People spend more time upgrading their phones or their apps than they do their mind. And today it's so important because we don't live no longer in an age where it's based on agriculture or industrial age muscle power. It's your mind power. It's not your brute strength. It's our brain strength. So my approach towards this is twofold. It's helping people using the metaphor of a supercomputer, I teach people the processes for reading faster, to focus, to remember names, to give a TED Talk from memory. But then also, besides the software, I show people how to upgrade their hardware, which are the lifestyle changes that they could do to have a better brain, the best foods, how to optimize your sleep, how to reduce your stress, all the things that take away from the better, brighter brain that we desire and we deserve.
That really sounds valuable. Can you tell us a little bit about how you change those processes so that people have got that software upgrade, as it were? And then I want to move on to the hardware and find out what we do to keep our brains really in tip-top shape.
100%. So let's start with the software. I focus on 5 areas of what's called meta-learning. Meta-learning is a science of learning how to learn. And I think if there's one skill to really master or double down on right now, it's our ability to learn faster in a world full of transformation, a world for rapid change in technology, is to be able to learn and adjust and learn new subjects. Because right now, if people are losing jobs or they're helping their children in school, they need to be able to learn how to learn. And unfortunately, our school system, they teach you what to learn and what to focus on and what to remember, but not necessarily how to learn, how to focus, and how to remember. And so how do you do those things? The 5 superpowers I focus on are, number 1, focus. How do you keep your concentration in a world full of rings and pings and dings, app notifications, social media alerts? Number 2, how do you study better technical material in your job or in your schooling? Number 3, memory, which is, I believe that it should have been the 4th R in school: reading, writing, arithmetic. Obviously, spelling wasn't one of them, but what about retention? What about recall? What about remembering? Socrates says, learning is remembering. And then the last 2 that we focus on really is speed reading. And it's not skimming or scanning or getting the gist of what you read, but really how do you comprehend and read smarter? And then finally, the last one is in the area of critical thinking skills. How do you solve problems? How do you make decisions? Because with jobs going to automation, to machines, to artificial intelligence, what's not going to be easily outsourced is those things like creativity, imagination, strategy, problem solving. And so we could go into any of those areas that you like, and I could share the process.
You're listening to Jim Kwik, an expert in speed reading, memory improvement, and optimal brain performance. He's the CEO and founder of Kwik Learning. For more than 2 decades, he served as a brain coach for individuals and corporate clients such as Google and the Cleveland Clinic. His book is Limitless. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life. We didn't talk a lot about it in the interview, but his book has a whole chapter on a good brain diet and the best foods for brain performance.
I really like the idea of learning how to learn instead of just struggling to memorize an increasing number of facts. What are the areas he mentioned again, Terry?
Well, the first one is focus. Can we learn how to concentrate on what we're learning and ignore distractions like social media alerts?
Oh, I could stand to learn how to study better.
Memory is one of Jim Kwik's special superpowers. I do like the idea of it being the 4th R, remembering, along with reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm looking forward to having him help us learn more about that.
Speed reading seems like it could certainly be useful.
Oh, yes. But critical thinking, the ability to solve problems and make good decisions, that seems even more important. Creativity and imagination are key.
After the break, we'll find out how to learn fast, F-A-S-T.
What can you do to overcome the 4 digital supervillain?
Learn how to hone your critical thinking skills.
You just need to wear a lot of hats, all different color.
Jim Kwik will tell us why you need white, red, black, yellow, green, and blue hats to really consider a problem from all angles.
You're listening to The People's Pharmacy with Joe and Terry Graydon.
The People's Pharmacy podcast is sponsored in part by Kaya Biotics. KAYA Biotics offers the first probiotics which are both certified organic and hypoallergenic.
All probiotics are produced in Germany under laboratory conditions with high-quality ingredients and under strict regulatory oversight.
The 3 available formulas are created for very specific purposes, such as strengthening the immune system, fighting yeast infections, and helping with weight loss.
To learn more about Kaya Biotics probiotics and the important topic of gut health, you can visit their website, KayaBiotics.com. That's KAYA Biotics.com. Use the discount code PEOPLE for $10 off your first purchase.
Welcome back to the People's Pharmacy. I'm Joe Graydon.
And I'm Terry Graydon.
The People's Pharmacy is brought to you in part by CocoVia, the maker of high-potency cocoflavanol supplements that support cognitive and cardiovascular health. More information at cocovia.com.
Also by Verizana, an analytical laboratory providing home health tests for hormones, gut health, and the microbiome. Online at verisana.com.
Today we are talking about how we can learn faster and better and remember more. This is the second episode in our 2-part series on memory.
Our guest is Jim Kwik, CEO and founder of Kwik Learning. That's KWIK. His book is Limitless. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life.
Jim, just before the break, you told us about the superpowers we need to learn well. Now, we hope you can give our listeners some practical tips on how to acquire those superpowers. We'd all like to be able to apply those skills in our daily lives so we can learn more quickly and remember things better.
Absolutely. I would recommend everybody, if possible, when they're listening to this, to take out a notepad, and I'll go rapid fire in terms of the practical tips, because there is a learning curve, but there's also a forgetting curve. Research suggests that within 48 hours of learning something once, that upwards of 80% of it is forgotten. And one of the ways to mitigate that is by taking notes. But one of the ways I teach of taking notes is to put a line down the page. And on the left side, I want you to capture. And on the right side, I want you to create. And so what I mean by that, on the left side, you're note taking. And on the right side, you're note making. Now, what's the difference? You're note taking on the left side, how to remember names, how to remember facts, how to read faster, the practical tips. And on the right side, what you're going to do is write your impressions of what you're capturing. So if you're going to get distracted, your imagination is going to take you somewhere. I want it to go to the right side of the page. So we'll start with that. Now, there are 4 keys to learning any subject or skill faster. And I want everyone to remember FAST, F-A-S-T. And I'll use a number of acronyms and mnemonics to make it easily rememberable. Number 1, the F in FAST stands for forget. So I want everyone to think about a subject or a skill they'd like to learn. It could be money, management, Mandarin, anything, even if it doesn't start with an M. Think about that. And the first thing I want you to do is the F is forget what you already know about a subject. A lot of reasons why we learn slowly is because we feel like we know it already. So you want to come from a beginner's mind, because the half-life of information in terms of when information becomes outdated is getting shorter and shorter. And so your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. I would also say forget about distractions. So I would say forget about what's going on in the world or that comes to your mind. And simple way of doing that, write it down on the right side of the page. If you're listening to this right now and you think about the dry cleaning or you think about something else, write it down if it's important, because you don't want to try not to think about it. Because if you try not to, you're going to think about it more, because what you resist persists. So just jot it down so you can release it. And finally, I would say forget about your limitations. So temporarily forget about what's possible. The A in FAST is active. The key to learning faster is not to be passive. 20th century education prepared us for a 20th century world, which at the turn of the 20th century is working in farms and factories. And it's not a criticism towards teachers. My mother became a school teacher to help me with my learning challenges. Teachers are some of the most capable, committed, caring individuals. They're not always compensated the way that maybe they should be, but it's a system issue. And so one of the things in class, it taught us to be very passive, meaning sit quietly by yourself and just be lectured to. Now, the human brain doesn't learn through consumption. It learns better through creation. And so how can you become more active in your learning? You could take notes. You could ask questions. You could do these thought experiments. Not everybody learns the same way. And so even if everybody wrote down their name right now on that piece of paper, first and last, everyone do that now. This is the active part, first and last name. And then if you can, switch hands to your opposite hand and write first and last name below it. You'll notice that the second one takes more time. It's more uncomfortable and the quality is not as good. And if you're ever not getting something, I don't know if the two of you have ever been interested in a subject, but for some reason you're just not getting it. And maybe the way you prefer to learn is different than the way the teacher prefers to teach. So it takes longer, it feels more uncomfortable, and the quality or the fidelity is not quite as good. I truly believe you're right that it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. It's not how smart you are or how smart your kids are or how smart your team is. It's how are they smart. And when you know how you learn your best through your dominant hand, you can apply that towards other areas as well. But the A is being active. And then finally, the S is very important. The S to learn any subject or skill better, to remember it better, to focus on it better, to retain it better, is state. All learning is state dependent, meaning that the key to a long-term memory is information by itself is forgettable, but information combined with emotion becomes unforgettable. You could remember back in school, what was the primary emotion most people felt in school? Most people would say they felt confused or they felt bored. On a scale of 0 to 10, boredom is probably a 0, right? Anything times 0 is 0. So information times emotion becomes 0, and we wonder why we forgot the periodic table. So what does this mean in terms of learning better? If you think about right now, even what's your current state, the mood of your mind and your body, you could say it's on a scale of 0 to 10, it's a 6. Ask yourself, what can I do to make it a 7 or an 8? What would I have to think, or how would I move my posture or my body or my facial expressions or my breathing to increase it? Because all learning is state dependent. If you learn something in a bored state, you're more likely to forget it. In fact, Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And so remember to control your state. First and foremost, get up and do some jumping jacks, put on some music, hydrate, take care of yourself, put a smile on your face because you're going to learn it better. And then finally, the T in fast is probably one of the most important ones, teach. When you learn something, for example, listening to this conversation, and you learn with the intention of teaching somebody else, you're going to learn it better. And when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. You'll have better focus. You'll take better notes. You'll own the material and you'll integrate it better. And so your intention matters. And so when you're learning anything that you want to learn with the intention of sharing it with somebody else.
Jim, there are a lot of what we call, or you call, super villains that are out there to rob us of our attention, our learning ability, and our memories. I guess I'm going to start with the idea of what we call our smartphones, robbing us of our ability to be smart. I can't tell you what Terry's cell phone number is. Why? Because it's on my speed dial. I just hit a button and it calls her up. So I just don't bother to memorize, to learn her cell phone number. How bad is that?
Right. I think right now, when it comes to memory, that some people feel absent-minded, like senior moments are coming way too early. You walk into a room and forget why you're there, or you're taking a shower and you can't remember if you shampooed your hair yet, or you get somebody's name and then you forget it as soon as you hear it. And so let's talk about these 4 digital supervillains. And this is not anti-technology. I love technology. It provides an immense amount of abundance in our life, an immense amount of convenience. But if we're too dependent on it, it could also cripple us. And the first one we could talk about is digital deluge. This is information overload. And how it presents itself, they call it in healthcare, information anxiety, higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness. It feels like we're drowning information, but we're never taught how to swim properly. like where you're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose. So how do you catch up, keep up, and get ahead? And so the amount of information is doubling at dizzying speeds, and it's having a real cost in terms of how it's overloading us. And another term for it is information fatigue syndrome. And everyone, I'm sure, could relate to that. Number two, besides digital deluge, is digital distraction. How do you maintain your concentration in a world full of rings and pings and dings, app notifications, social media alerts? And one of the challenges is I have a video on Facebook has 27 million views. It just says, stop looking at your phone the first 30 minutes of the day. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback from that. But the reason why is when you wake up in the morning, you're in this relaxed state of awareness. You're very suggestible. You're very creative. But if the first thing you do is pick up your phone, which a lot of us are guilty of, what we're retraining our brain to do, rewiring our brain to do is, number one, to be distracted. Because every cat video, like, share, comment, it gives you a dopamine flood, which trains you to be more distracted, because whatever you're doing consistently, you're getting better at. And then you wonder why you can't concentrate when you're on a Zoom call. You wonder why you can't concentrate when you're trying to read something, because you flexed and worked out your distraction muscles first thing. The second reason you don't pick up your phone first thing in the morning is it not only rewires your brain for distraction, it rewires your brain for reaction, meaning that have either of you gotten a voicemail or a text message first thing in the morning, or an email, and it just hijacks your whole mood for the whole day? And it puts us in the defense, or reacting to things more like a thermometer. And you don't want to be a thermometer just reacting to the environment. You want to be a thermostat. A thermostat gauges the environment, but it sets a goal or a temperature, and then the environment reacts on it. And so digital distraction is, how do you maintain your concentration in a world full of shiny objects? And it's just growing. The third supervillain is digital dementia. As you've mentioned, how many phone numbers did you used to remember? Back then, we used to remember pretty much all of them, right? But now we remember maybe one or two, and it could be to somebody you text or call every single day. But if you don't have your phone or the battery is dead, you can't do it. And I train at places like Facebook and Google, and I'll get this question saying, Jim, why do I have to remember things if it's, we are organizing the world's information in our search engine? Why do I have to remember it? And I'll make two cases. Number one, I have this quote and that I talk about that is from a French philosopher that says, life is the C between B and D. B is birth, D is death, C is choice. And I believe these difficult times can define you. These difficult times can diminish you, or these difficult times can develop you. But ultimately, we decide, so we have that power. But going back to making choices, we can only make good decisions if our life is the sum total of all the decisions we've made up to this point: where to live, who to spend time with, what to eat, what we're going to do for a living. Then we can only make good decisions based on the information we know. And that presupposes we remember it. That's why Socrates said learning is remembering. And so digital dementia is the high reliance on using your smart device as an external memory source. It keeps your to-dos, it keeps your calendar, it keeps your phone numbers. And it's not that I want to memorize 200 phone numbers, but isn't it concerning that we've lost the ability to remember one, or a PIN number, or a passcode, or something we just read? I believe two of the most costly words in our life are I forgot. I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot that person's name. And so it's similar to our physical body. If we rely on Lyft or Uber to take us 5 blocks when we could have walked it, or we take an elevator instead of walking 3 flights of stairs, then it's use it or lose it. If you put your arm in a sling for 12 months, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same. What would happen to it? It would just atrophy and get weaker. And that's digital dementia. And finally, the last supervillain is digital deduction. And it's a term that I coined in the book that basically says that it's interesting. They're testing children right now, and they have lower analytical ability than previous generations, because technology is not only remembering everything for us, it's also doing all the thinking for us. So it's just feeding us information through algorithms. So we never have to develop critical thinking skills or reasoning skills or divergent thinking. And that's why I feel like that school is a great place to learn, what to think, what to focus on, but not how to learn and how to think. And that's why I think it's important to have mental models to be able to make good decisions, to be creative, to be able to solve problems. But those are your 4 supervillains, if you will.
So, Jim, how do we overcome especially that final supervillain, the digital deduction. What do we do to hone our critical thinking skills?
That's a great question. I believe that's our value right now in today's society, our ability to solve problems in our work, our ability to be creative, our ability to imagine and envision a better tomorrow. And that's not going to go to a computer. So there's different models that we teach. And one of them is something called the 6 Thinking Hats. 6 Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono. He's the creator of it, basically saying that the same level of thinking that's created your problem won't solve your problem. And what keeps us from being better at making decisions. So everyone right now, think about a decision you need to make or a problem you're facing right now. What keeps us stuck if we're not making progress on like a solution is seeing it from one point of view. So normally we're seeing it through just our lens. And there's a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution that suggests that all major innovation comes from someone outside of the industry, because in fashion and automotive, because it takes somebody outside like an Elon Musk to look inside saying, how would I create a car with today's technology? Because you're not born and educated with the same limiting beliefs and what's possible in your mindset. So it starts with asking new questions. So 6 thinking hats, when you think about this problem, we can do it really quickly. Imagine 6 hats in front of you, and there's 6 different colors. And when you put on one of these hats, it forces you to look at this situation through one point of view. And the idea is if you could see it through 6 different points of view, you can make a better choice moving forward. So the first hat very, very quickly is the white hat. When you put on the white hat, imagine you're putting on a white hat and you're looking at this situation. The white hat is the logical hat. And so it's the information-based hat. And to help, I'll give you everyone a memory tip since I'm a memory coach. Imagine a white lab coat a scientist would wear. So you're looking at it, just looking at the facts, looking at the numbers, looking at the information. Take off the white hat, put on the red hat. Now, immediately when you put on the red hat, you go from sorting by data to your feelings. How do you feel about what's going on? How do you feel about the different paths you could take here? And that's all feeling. Take off the red hat, put on now, let's say, put on the black hat. And the black hat is the critic, is the judge. What could go wrong in this situation? And how can you manage that risk? And to remind you of that, imagine a judge's robes, the black robes, and this is your judgment hat. Now take off the black hat, and I want everyone to put on the yellow hat. The yellow hat is kind of like the yellow sun, is opportunity. What's the optimistic view? What could go right here? Because some people just look at it from that point of view, and that's why they're stuck, because they're not looking at what could go wrong, or they're not looking at the facts, or they're not looking at how they feel. And then finally, the last 2 hats, the green hat, when you put it on, green is growth, new possibilities. This is creativity. So maybe your choice is whether to change your job or stay with your current job. But maybe a green choice would be going back to school and getting an education. Green growth like grass. So you're looking for new possibilities. And finally, the last hat is the blue hat. And the blue hat is always the last hat. The other ones could come in any syntax or order. The blue hat's like the blue sky. It manages everything else. It overlooks everything else. And it hears all the answers from the other hats, and it manages, and it comes up with the final solution. So this is one example of how you could become a better critical thinker, because it allows you and gives yourself permission to be able to look at things through different points of view.
You're listening to Jim Kwik. He's a world expert in speed reading, memory improvement, and optimal brain performance. He's the CEO and founder of Kwik, Kwik, Learning. For over 2 decades, he's served as a brain coach to students, seniors, and educators. Jim Kwik is the author of Limitless: Upgrade Your Brain, Learn Anything Faster, and Unlock Your Exceptional Life.
After the break, you'll learn 10 things you can do to improve your memory.
You need exercise, a good diet for your brain, and specific brain nutrients.
You also need to get rid of your automatic negative thought.
A positive peer group can do wonders for your brain power. Don't forget sleep and stress management.
You're listening to The People's Pharmacy with Joe and Terry Graydon.
This People's Pharmacy podcast is brought to you in part by Verisana.com.
Verisana Lab offers home health tests that allow you to monitor your hormones and health conditions. You can take control of the quantitative assessment of your health and learn about male and female hormone balance, the stress hormone cortisol, leaky gut, gluten intolerance, or your gut microbiome.
Take a more active role in tracking your health and take 20% off your first order of a mail-in testing opportunity with the discount code PEOPLE. That's uppercase PEOPLE. To learn more, go to Verisana.com. That's Verisana.com.
Welcome back to the People's Pharmacy. I'm Terry Graydon.
And I'm Joe Graydon. The People's Pharmacy is brought to you in part by Kaya Biotics, probiotic products made in Germany from certified organic ingredients. KAYA Biotics.com.
And by CocoVia, maker of high-potency cocoflavanol supplements that support cognitive and cardiovascular health. More information at cocovia.com.
Today, we're talking about enhancing your brain power. Do you experience a lot of negative thoughts about what you can or can't accomplish? What superpower can you employ to overcome this and maximize stress management? These are skills that will help you learn and remember better.
Our guest is Jim Kwik. He's an expert in speed reading, memory improvement, and optimal brain performance. He's the CEO and founder of Kwik, KWIK Learning, a leader in accelerated learning with online students in more than 150 countries. For over 2 decades, he served as a brain coach to students, seniors, entrepreneurs and educators, as well as professional athletes, political leaders, and corporate clients, including the United Nations, Caltech, and Harvard University. Jim Kwik is the author of Limitless: Upgrade Your Brain, Learn Anything Faster, and Unlock Your Exceptional Life.
Jim, you've just given us a marvelous way of rethinking, how we manage our challenges and have critical thinking. And I'm wondering, before we say goodbye to you today, since in point of fact, you are a memory coach, mm-hmm. Maybe you could help our listeners improve their memory right away, because, mm-hmm. There are so many things that just slip out of our memory so fast, whether it's somebody's name, whether it's the things that we have to do today, whether it's, something we heard on a telephone call that we're supposed to follow up on, but then we forget, 2 out of the 3 things we hear. So in the couple of minutes we have left, how can we make a difference when it comes to improving our memories?
Absolutely. I'll give you 10 things you could do, really rapid fire, and then I'll give you a memory exercise that you could practice, everybody, so we can make it interactive. There are 10 keys. We know at the trainings that I do at the Cleveland Clinic Center for Brain Health and different institutions that about 1/3 of your memory is predetermined by biology, but 2/3 is in your control, and no matter your age or background. So what has a factor in that? I'll give you 10 things right now everyone can write down, and I'm going to show you a memory trick. Number 1, a good brain diet. There are certain foods that are neuroprotective. It's an area of science called neuronutrition, because your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but it requires 20% of nutrition and different requirements. And I'll talk about in a little bit the top 10 brain foods, and we'll memorize them together maybe. The second thing that would be good for your brain is not only what you eat, it's your inner talk. So you want to kill ants. Killing ants is actually clinically proven to be good for your brain. And ANT stands for automatic negative thoughts. And I got this from a brain doctor named Dr. Daniel Amen. And so you want to reduce those negative thoughts, meaning that affects your brain. So if your brain is like a supercomputer and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. People come to me at events all the time saying, Jim, I'm too old. I have a horrible memory. And I say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So keep it positive. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. Number 3, exercise. We know, write this down, as your body moves, your brain grooves. When you exercise, you create something called brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is like fertilizer for your brain. And so you could grow older, but you could grow better. What's good for your heart is going to be good for your head. And I don't just mean working out 3 times a week. I mean not sitting behind a screen for 8 hours a day, taking a break. The optimal time to work is 25 to 30 minutes. Because after that, there's a big dip in your concentration. It's called the Pomodoro technique. Take a 5-minute brain break to hydrate, to breathe, and also to move. As your body moves, your brain grooves. Number 4, brain nutrients, which means if you're not getting it from your diet, your brain needs vitamin B, it needs vitamin E, it needs DHA, omega-3s. Then you could look into supplement, talk to a healthcare practitioner. Number 5 is a positive peer group. Who you spend time with is who you become, because you have these things called mirror neurons, and we're always imitating the people around us. So it's not just your neurological networks, it's your social networks, because we start imitating the languaging, the habits of the people around us. And first we create our habits, then our habits create us. So are you being around people that encourage you and challenge you, that cheerlead for you? And we all need that person in our life. And if you haven't found that person, I recommend you be that person for somebody else, especially be that person for you. Number 6 is a clean environment. We know that a clean environment helps your brain, that when you make your bed and you start your day with excellence, you clean off your desktop or you clean your office, you have clarity of thought. Your external environment is a reflection of your internal environment. So clean environment is good for your brain. Number 7 is sleep. We know that when you do not sleep well, how's your focus the next day? How's your memory? When you sleep, that's when you actually consolidate your short to long-term memory. So if you have long-term memory issues, look into a sleep study, because sleep is paramount. That's for your long-term memory. It's also where you clean out plaque that leads to brain aging challenges. And I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's. That's why we donate all the proceeds to the book to Alzheimer's research for women. But like, how can you take care of your brain? Sleep. And number 8 is brain protection. Brain protection is, I have had 3 traumatic brain injuries. Make sure you wear a helmet to protect your brain. It's resilient, but it's also very fragile. And number 9, new learnings. They did a study on nuns. I call them super nuns. They were living 80, 90 and above. They found out the secret to their longevity was half of it was their emotional gratitude and faith. The other half, they were lifelong learners. And because of it, it added years to their life and life to their years. It was on the cover of Time magazine. The study was called Aging with Grace. And finally, the 10th thing you could do for your brain is stress management. Chronic stress shrinks your brain. It puts you in fight, flight, or freeze. And it's not good if you need to study. It's not good if you need to remember someone's name. It's not good if you have to give a toast at a wedding. So reduce that stress. Now, the 10 brain foods, going back, finishing with this, here they are. These are the 10 neuroprotective foods. So number 1 are avocados. Number 2, blueberries. And I call them brain berries. Number 3, broccoli. Number 4, olive oil. Number 5, eggs. If your diet allows, the choline in eggs is good for your brain. Number 6, green leafy vegetables like kale and spinach. Number 7 is wild salmon. Your brain is mostly fat, so those are the fish oils. You could also have sardines. Number 8, turmeric. It lowers inflammation in your body and your brain. Number 9, walnuts are great for the brain, vitamin E, also shaped like the human brain. And finally, number 10, here's a fun one, dark chocolate. Not milk chocolate, but dark chocolate. Generally, what's good for your mood is going to be good for your mind. And so those are 10 foods. You are what you eat, and what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter.
Jim Kwik, how can we remember all those super foods for our brains?
Great question. I think we've all had the experience where we go to the store to buy one thing. We come back with 2 grocery bags full of things, except for the one thing we went to the store for.
Yes.
So how do you remember this? I'm going to teach everybody a simple technique called PIE, P-I-E. P stands for place, I stands for imagine, and the E stands for entwine. How does this work? A big part of our memory is location, is where we store the information. And so we store information in places. In fact, when you forget somebody's name, what's the first question you ask? Where do I know this person from? Because the context gives you the content. As hunter-gatherers, you didn't need to remember long numbers. You need to remember where the food was. Where's the clean water? Where's the fertile soil? Where's the enemy tribe? That was your survival. So you need a place. The I is you imagine. What does that mean? When you could picture something in your mind, you can remember it better. A lot of people who are listening are better with faces than they are with names. You go to somebody and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never say, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. But we tend to remember what we see. There's a proverb that says, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forget. I heard the name, I forgot the name. What I see, I remember. I saw the face, I remember the face. And what I do, going back to practice, I understand. And so that's the I is imagine. And the E is entwine, meaning you put the image in the place. You associate those two things. So let's do it really quick for the 10 brain foods. Let's take 10 places on a place that you're very familiar with, which is your body. And I want everyone to do this. Let's make this active. We talked about the power of being active. We're going to go top to bottom, 10 places on our body. What I want everyone to do is say and touch the point that I'm talking about. So the number 1 is top of your head. So number 1 is top. So everyone, this is your auditory memory. Number 1 is what? Say it out loud.
Top.
Number 2 is nose. What's number 2?
Nose.
Number 3 is mouth. 3 is what?
Mouth.
And touch your mouth. Number 4, go to the side, your ears. 4 is what?
Ears.
Good. 5 is your throat. What's 5?
Throat.
6, shoulders. What's 6?
Shoulders.
And everyone, listeners are doing this too. 7 is your collar, your collarbone. What's number 7?
Collar.
Good. And that's 7. 8 are your fingers. Wiggle your fingers. What's 8?
Fingers.
9 is belly. Touch your belly. What's 9?
Big belly.
And 10 is going to be your bottom, your rear end. What's number 10?
Bottom.
So top to bottom. So those are your 10 places. So we did the P in pie. Now the I is you imagine. And it's really easy. Imagine, we're just going to imagine the foods. And what are we going to imagine? We're going to entwine the food right in the place. So in the first place is what? The top of your head. And the first thing you want to remember are avocados. So on everyone, now pretend you're 8 years old. Who are the fastest learners? Children. They're so playful. They use their imagination, their creativity. And so this is a great creativity imagination exercise, mental exercise. Imagine you're making guacamole as like a hair conditioner on your top of your head. And if it makes you laugh, then you remember information times emotion becomes a long-term memory. So imagine that. And if you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. The second place is your nose, right? And coming out of your nose is the second brain food. Blueberries. I want you to imagine blueberries coming out of your nose. Now, it's so illogical. It would never happen, but that's why you remember it. That's why you remember it. Blueberries coming out of your nose. And use your senses. What does it smell like? Good. Third place, right below your nose, is your mouth. And I want you to remember broccoli. Imagine broccoli. Now, you could put broccoli in your teeth, but imagine a big stalk of broccoli in your teeth. That's more memorable. So broccoli in your teeth. Fourth are your ears. And I want you to remember olive oil. You're cleaning your ears with olive oil, or you're wearing olive earrings. It would never happen, but that's why it becomes unforgettable. Number 5 is your throat. And I want you to imagine instead of an Adam's apple, you have an egg there, an egg. And so illogical, but that's why it stands out in your mind. You have hard-boiled eggs on your throat. That's number 5. 6 are your shoulders, and those are your green leafy vegetables. So I want you to imagine shoulder pads made out of spinach and kale. Shoulder pads made out of spinach and kale. So just imagine that. And you can't just hear it. You have to hear it, you have to see it, and feel it. That's when you unlock your memory. Number 7 is your collar. And I want you to remember salmon, wild salmon. So imagine a necklace made out of salmon sushi. What would that smell like? What would that taste like? And the laughter means you're going to remember it. It's because we don't remember things that are ordinary and boring. That's 7. Number 8 are your fingers. So wiggle your fingers. And I want you to imagine turmeric. Your fingers are covered in that golden spice. Turmeric. I make in the morning like a golden milk with almond milk, turmeric, a little pepper helps you absorb it better. But turmeric covering your fingers. And then finally, number 9 is your belly. That is the walnuts. Walnuts. Imagine walnuts coming out of your belly button. It's kind of silly, but remember, that's what makes it memorable. Fun exercise. And walnuts out of your belly button. Finally, number 10 is your bottom. And I want you to remember dark chocolate. And your listeners, I don't even want to know what you're thinking. Just imagine whatever it is, dark chocolate. Now you're out in the store and you're walking down the aisles and you don't have your grocery list because maybe you forgot that back at home. You just walk up just imagine going down your body from top to bottom and you have your foods. The first food on the top of your head is what?
Avocados.
Your nose.
Guacamole in my hair.
No, out of your nose are
Blueberries,
because they smell so great.
They do. Brainberries. Out of your mouth and your teeth, you have the
broccoli stuck in your teeth.
Oh boy, people hate that look.
Your ears, you're cleaning it with
olive oil.
Your throat, you're choking, or you have, instead of an Adam's apple, eggs. Good, halfway there. Your shoulders, you have shoulder pads made out of
green leaves.
Yeah,
kale,
yes, or spinach. Number 7 is your collar. What kind of necklace are you wearing?
That sushi necklace. Yes. Salmon.
Yeah, it smells terrible.
It's good for your brain. Number 8 on your fingers is covered in
turmeric.
Very good. Anti-inflammatory. Out of your belly button, you
walnuts. Yum.
And finally, your bottom, you remember
chocolate. Of course, I could remember the chocolate without connecting it to any body part.
The best ever. And you can take a lot of these foods and put them into a blender and you have your brain power smoothie in the morning. Don't put probably not the fish, but the chocolate, the green leafy vegetables, some blueberries, some avocado. It's wonderful. And I bet the two of you and everyone listening could do it backwards too. It's not just from top to bottom. You start from your bottom and you have what?
Dark chocolate.
And your belly, you have
walnuts.
Right. And on your fingers, you have
turmeric.
You could go all the way back up to the top again. And when you understand how your memory works, you could work your memory. And there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory.
Jim Kwik, thank you so much for showing us how we can train our memories today on the People's Pharmacy.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Jim Kwik. He's a world expert in speed reading, memory improvement, and optimal brain performance. He's the CEO and founder of Kwik Learning, KWIK, a leader in accelerated learning with online students of every age in more than 150 countries. For over 2 decades, he served as a brain coach to students, seniors, entrepreneurs, and educators, as well as professional athletes and political leaders. Jim Kwik is the author of Limitless. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life.
Why don't you try the pie exercise Jim just showed us for yourself? Remember, place, imagine, and entwine so you can retrieve a series just like the brain foods he described.
Lynn Siegel produced today's show. Al Wodarski engineered. Dave Graydon edits our interviews.
The People's Pharmacy is produced at the studios of North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC. This week, the show was recorded from our home studio.
The People's Pharmacy theme music is by B.J. Lederman.
The People's Pharmacy is brought to you in part by Verizana, an analytical laboratory providing home health tests for hormones, gut health, and the microbiome. Online at verisana.com.
And by CocoVia, offering plant-based nutrients in the form of cocoa flavanols for brain and heart health. Online at cocovia.com.
To buy a CD of today's show or any other People's Pharmacy broadcast, you can call 800-732-8788. 800-732-2334. Today's show is 1220. The number again, 800-732-2334, online at peoplespharmacy.com.
When you visit our site, you can share your thoughts about today's show. Let us know if you find any of these strategies helpful.
When you visit the website, you could also subscribe to the podcast or sign up for our free online newsletter to get the latest news about COVID-19 and other important health stories. In Durham, North Carolina, I'm Joe Graydon.
And I'm Terry Graydon. Thank you for listening. Please join us again next week. Thank you for listening to the People's Pharmacy Podcast. It's an honor and a pleasure to bring you our award-winning program week in and week out. But producing and distributing this show as a free podcast takes time and costs money.
If you like what we do and you'd like to help us continue to produce high-quality, independent healthcare journalism, please consider chipping in.
All you have to do is go to peoplespharmacy.com/donate.
Whether it's just one time or a monthly donation, you can be part of the team that makes this show possible. Thank you for your continued loyalty and support. We couldn't make our show without you.